So I found this really interesting, to be honest. It's in the New Scientist. New Scientist. Yeah, well, I've said it twice there. Australians care if politicians tell lies that the people in the US don't. The US may have entered a post-truth era, but Australians have not. Researchers who asked people in the US their views on politicians frequently bend the truth found that fact-checking had little impact, whereas for Australians it did change their political opinions. The findings in Australia are positive and encouraging, says team member Stefan Ledowski, I think that's how you say it, of the University of Bristol in the UK. They suggest fact-checking is a genuine counter to politicians who regularly make false statements. People like a politician less if they find out they have been lied to a lot, he said. It's a reasonable and large effect. But when the team did a follow-up study in the US, the size of the effect was 10 times smaller. We have a lot of information now suggesting that American voters don't really care about facts in the same sense that if you tell them a politician is dishonest, it doesn't really seem to matter. In the Australian study, 450 people did an online test in which they were shown statements made by Bill Shorten and Malcolm Turnbull, who at the time were leaders of the left-wing Labour Party and the right-wing Liberal Party, respectively. Some participants were shown an equal mix of true and false statements, while others were shown mostly false ones. They were asked about their belief in the statements, their feelings towards the politicians, and their voting intentions. They were then shown the statements again along with very short fact checks and asked the same question again. The feelings and the voters' intention to those shown mostly falsehood changed significantly, while those people shown an equal mix of truth and falsehood did not. Surprisingly, fact-checking was just as effective with the people's initial view of the politicians making the statement. The follow-up study in the US used statements from Donald Trump and Bernie Sanders. The full details have not yet been published, but the change in people's feelings toward politicians who frequently make untrue statements was 10 times smaller than in Australia. The team did not investigate the reason for this difference, but they speculate it has to do far more with the polarised nature of political culture in the US. In Australia, the voting is compulsory and there is a preferential voting system. There are buffers against extremism in the Australian system that does not exist in the US. It actually surprises me that it's Australia that came up with that result, but hey, there you go, sometimes you do get strange things. But what do you think to that? I mean, that to me is quite interesting in the fact that, bearing in mind, Australia, from everything that I've seen, has quite a hive of anti-vaxxers. But there you go. And in fact, speaking of that, tomorrow we've got a very special anti-vax video.